Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Whatever your time zone, welcome. This is Digital Transformation Talk, and I am your host, Kevin Crane. Welcome to the show. Today, we're here to talk about making hybrid work a long term success. Now, hybrid work refers to a work arrangement that combines both remote work and on site work, allowing employees to split their time between working from a physical office and working from another location, often their homes. Hybrid work has become increasingly important for businesses today due to several factors that have reshaped the way we work. The first being flexibility and work life balance. Hybrid work allows employees to strike a balance between work and personal life by providing the flexibility to work from different locations. And this helps reduce burnout, improving overall well being, and as a result, is a benefit for organizations in terms of talent attraction and retention. Offering hybrid work can make a company more attractive to potential employees and may offer a competitive advantage in recruiting and retaining top talent. And if you're like me, you like working in a quiet and comfortable environment at home that can enhance our productivity, but many other people thrive in a collaborative office setting. So, hybrid work, when done right, can enhance workforce productivity and performance. It can contribute to cost savings for both employees and employers and may reduce the overall expenses related to office space, utilities, and commuting. There are a bunch of other factors to consider: greater resilience in the face of unexpected events like a pandemic, for example. Reducing commuting and office space may contribute to a smaller carbon footprint, aligning with corporate social responsibility goals and addressing environmental concerns. Hybrid work can promote diversity and inclusion. It can help overcome geographic barriers. But ultimately, for me, the biggest factor is my organization's ability to adapt to changing work dynamics. Look, the nature of work is evolving, and the traditional 9 to 5 office may not suit everyone. Hybrid work allows companies to adapt to these changing work dynamics, ensuring they stay agile and responsive. So, the question for us today is, how can we make hybrid work work? Work for the organization and work for employees. What kind of tech is needed? What kind of practices and policies are needed? And how does hybrid work serve important organizational key performance indicators? Well, that's what we'll be talking about today with a great panel of guests. Excuse me, but before I introduce our guests, I do want to say that we want to hear from you too. We'd like to encourage everyone attending today to participate. So please join in with your comments in the chat section. And if you have a question along the way, just jump on in. We will attempt to get some of your questions into the flow of the show. And we'll have a few minutes also at the end for your questions. All right, let's bring aboard our panel of guests today, starting with Eamon O'Doherty. Eamon is the partner and portfolio director for Europe at Logitech, where he's worked for the past 10 years. He's worked in unified communications and collaboration for 20 years across several well-known companies. But one little known fact about Eamon is that, Eamon, you have a fear of brown envelopes. Tell us more. What is it with brown envelopes, Eamon?
Yeah, I've never had any good news in one, so it's a fear that stays with me.
I see. All right. Well, I remember my mom packing me some terrible lunches going to school in a brown paper bag. So I think I kind of understand where you're coming from for that. All right. Welcome, Eamon. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for
Also
the intro.
today is Rafael Narezi. Rafael is a Chief Technology Officer at CF Partners and is responsible for delivering and developing high value technology and data solutions for renewable energy clients. Rafael, welcome aboard. Where are you calling in from today? Are you with us? We cannot hear you,
I am.
Rafael. Ah, there
Sorry
you
about
are.
yes. Yes.
Welcome aboard.
I'm
Where are you
sorry. I
calling in
was on
from
mute.
today?
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm in London today. I'm traveling quite a lot, so I'm kind of in the hotel place, just ready for departure. I have another event tonight, but yeah, thank you for having me. It's a great opportunity to collaborate with everyone.
Well, thank you for getting us on your schedule today. We appreciate it. Looking forward to having you with us today. And finally, Mark Chalice is IT Operations and Security Manager at EIP. He runs the day-to-day IT operations and security at EIP, an award-winning law firm that advises high-value, complex patients or patents, I should say, patents. But Mark, you are often stopped because and asked if you are a dog walker. You are, in fact, the proud owner of 3 dogs. You walk them all at the same time. Is that why you're stopped as a dog walker?
I do. Yes, thanks, Kevin. Probably a little bit unusual to see somebody walking along with 3 dogs. So, yeah, if I had a pound for every time I'd been asked if I was a dog walker, and then yeah, I probably wouldn't need to be working right now.
All right. Well, yeah. All right. Well, I'm a dog lover, so welcome aboard. We'll have to talk
Thank
more
you.
about your dogs. But all right, gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us today. I'd like to get us moving along by directing our attention to an article published recently by Forbes titled "Forcing People Back to the Office. Should Companies Think Again?" And look, the article reinforces what I was saying earlier, that work realities are shifting, both in what employees expect from their employer and how they want to work. Increasingly, that means moving to a hybrid working model, but many organizations are forcing people back to the office. Deutsche Bank was the latest company to make news for toughening its work from home policies, but these are only just some of the headlines about this subject that we continue to see. According to a report in the article from Deloitte, 60% of leaders say that the pandemic improved workplace culture, but despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, 85% of leaders say the shift to hybrid work has made it challenging to have confidence that workers are productive under the hybrid work model. So really boils down to a lack of trust that employees are indeed being productive. So my question to the group is forcing people back to the office a good thing, or should companies think again? Eamon, I'd like to start with you, if I could. What are your thoughts about the article and the idea of forcing employees back to the office?
Yeah, I guess like most headlines, it's always a little bit more maybe dramatic than what sits underneath. But I have a favorite saying, I think it goes along the lines of: a man forced to change against his will is of the same opinion still. And I don't think that forcing people back to the office is a healthy thing. I think companies have tried different approaches, motivation to get people back, food and drink days and all these good things that were very enjoyable. But I think the most important thing here really is to motivate people to want to come back into the office. And that all comes down to experiences. As you mentioned at the beginning there, in a nice quiet home office, I'm getting a pretty good experience here today. Raphael is collaborating on the go, and he's working from a hotel lobby. So collaboration can be done anywhere. I think we're all proving that, right? But yeah, I wouldn't be a fan of forcing people back to the office. Agreement that good things happen when we come together. But yeah, I would rather we focused on enhancing the experiences to get people back in rather than the force.
Mm-hmm. Raphael, you are indeed our poster child for remote work or hybrid work environment. Here you are working on the road yourself. What are your thoughts about organizations forcing people back to the office? Would that work for you?
Yes, totally. I think we need to ask the questions: are we adapting to the reality? Because I think it's going to be very hard to find talents to continue working across. I think it's just being said by Eamon. The facilities that we provide before with a pool game, sandwiches or bar, it's no longer something on the kind of selection of options for them to decide to work for the company. I think is the hybrid mode also help us, but forcing, I don't think so. Is a good condition to be imposed, as you're not going to have talents tomorrow. Caveat to that, I think I have to say that one of the difficulty that is being saying since that I'm 100% in favor for working remotely is the new generation, how being remote, right? But I think is something that we have to take on this conversation as we go along. But yes, I'm 100% in favor of that.
And Mark, what is your take on this idea of employee trust that is brought up in the article? C-suite leaders have a hard time trusting that employees really are being as productive as they would be in the office. What about this idea of employee trust? Is that something that C-suite leaders are making too much of, or are they spot on with that?
Well, I think it's been nearly 3 years now since the original pandemic, even maybe four, lose track of time. And I think that people have shown that remote working can work. I think there's always going to be elements of business where you're going to want people to be in the same office at the same time to have that real one-to-one interaction, have team meetings and so forth. But from my side of things, it's how can the technology break down those barriers? What technology can bring to enable people to be able to work from home on a sort of hybrid basis, and making sure that technology isn't the reason that hybrid working can't work. And I think that's what we're always trying to evolve and work with, and show that with good unified communications, with good hardware, we've got good software, with good processes, that it can work. And I think over the past 3 or 4 years, it has shown that it can work. And that, in my role, is the most important thing, making sure that technology isn't that barrier to prevent hybrid working being in place.
Well, Mark, you are leading me directly where we needed to go with this conversation, to our first discussion point today about technology. What kinds of technologies are needed to make it work? Effective setups to bring your remote workers into the organization in a way that makes sense and increases enhanced collaboration. So let's talk about that. Our first discussion point today. What kind of technology is needed to make hybrid work? And sorry, Eamon, you're with Logitech. And when I think of remote work, I think of Logitech as a leader. In fact, way back when, Logitech was a leader in remote collaboration. What is your thought on the technologies that are needed, and what are your recommendations for organizations for the right kind of environment to make remote work and hybrid work?
Yeah, so thank you. Like you say, it isn't actually a new thing. If I think about my own work career, you mentioned I've been in UC and C for 20 years, and I've kind of been a hybrid worker for 20 years, service stations and dialing into conference calls from the car. And there's a couple of things that really stand out, and good audio is absolutely key. And today, as is good video. But I think the real important thing with hybrid working is meeting equity, because again, if we come back to the boardroom that used to be installed with a nice video conferencing solution 10 years ago, it gave us great voice and video. And what the pandemic has done is has really accelerated the number of hybrid workers. So whilst I say it isn't a new thing, it's really forced everyone to really reconsider their business continuity plans and how can they change. And I think the successful organizations are going to be the ones that really focus on the outcomes they want to achieve, how quickly they can achieve them, and how they're going to flex along the way. But from a setup point of view, I really do think it is down to meeting equity, because if you picture those calls that you dial into and the 5 people in the room, good video, good audio, good bandwidth network, and they're kind of talking across the table to each other, and it probably feels pretty inclusive. But then if you think of the 1 or 2 have dialed in remotely from home, this is where meeting equity is absolutely key, because they're not getting that same experience, right? They're not seeing the people talking across the table to each other. So I think it's really about enhancing that experience in the room, and maybe it's multiple cameras. Again, something that Logitech's put a lot of energy into to really enhance that experience within the room, so that actually the people who are dialing in remotely really feel part of that call and get the same experience and equity that those in the room will get. I think that's absolutely essential if hybrid working is going to work.
Mark, I think Eamon brings up a great point. From your point of view, how can we keep remote workers engaged and feeling part of the organization in these situations that Eamon is discussing?
It's a difficult one. I think sort of having unified communications is absolutely vital, making sure that everybody within the firm is using the same software. and where possible, the same hardware. I mean, of course, at home, people working are not going to have full VC video conferencing systems, but having good webcams, not having to use the built-in ones on laptops. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of the laptops were so old that they didn't even have integrated webcams with them. So making sure that there's a unified communication platform there and making sure that everybody uses their webcams when they're speaking. I think there's a tendency that some people want to, you know, have their camera off for whatever reasons. Maybe when I was at home, they weren't so comfortable. But I think it's really important that people engage. And even if you're just having a quick 1 or 2 minute conversation with somebody, that you're using the videos so that you can speak with one another. I mean, I think having a real clear communication guideline for everybody is also really important, making sure that everybody's aware of how frequently they should be checking in with one another. And within the meeting rooms in the offices, as Eamon sort of touched on, I mean, we use Logitech Systems EIP, making sure that you have good video conferencing systems that are available and that can use AI to identify what person is speaking, so you can get that real one-to-one interaction. And having a real good sort of call platform such as Microsoft Teams, which we use, and people are able to sort of communicate and talk, and now even start to use Copilot to be able to sort of really make their communication methods even better. So I think making sure that that real unified communication across the board from within the office and for those people who are working at home full time or also working hybrid.
Now, Raphael, it's interesting. It's definitely a mixture of the right kinds of technology, but also the right sorts of practices. Raphael, is it as easy as just using Zoom, or what kinds of management practices and indeed HR practices are needed to make hybrid work well? Are they different now than they were before?
I don't think so. I think the KPIs are significantly what we are looking for. Managing a cross global team in different regions, different geographics is very hard. There are people working 100% remotely, and it's very hard for you to manage everything that's happening across multiple teams. However, what we try to take in consideration is the results, is the KPI. I think we embrace the trust with the employees. We give them the opportunity to show and actually to highlight how good they are at their work. I think the trust comes with the results. Bear in mind, technology brings us together on the remote facility, but we also have people trying to explore different situations of having double work, which is already happened in many companies, right? Which is actually using in a bad way. However, we need to considering only on the kind of a positive way, which embrace the communication and facilitate us to move forward.
Interesting. All right. Bill Johnson has been commenting and has a question for us that I think relates to this. Bill is basically saying the largest issue is companies have not really changed their old ways of working. Corporations need to improve. Now, one thing they need to improve is the way that they actually measure productivity. It's not just your presence anymore, it's your output. So my question, I'll put it out to the entire group. What kind of KPIs or key performance indicators are used to measure employee productivity, and are they outdated? What kinds of new measures might be needed to more appropriately measure employee productivity? Anyone have some thoughts on that?
If you don't mind, I can start. We use OKR. I think is a very famous objective key result, which is segregating every single quarter, and this is distributed across multiple teams, which works very well. I think is the little is the little impact that everyone can do into the kind of a whole group, which builds the whole picture that we want to be. And I think this has been quite significant for us to get results from the perspective of everyone's working hard.
All right, interesting. All right, very good. So it's a combination of the right technologies, the right processes and practices, and the right measurements to appropriately measure employee engagement and employee effectiveness. it seems to me that one effectiveness quotient that we've been hovering around a little bit is this idea of remote worker isolation. How do we indeed get remote workers engaged and feeling a part of the organization? I think it was Eamon that mentioned a lot of folks in meetings perhaps will just turn off their cameras. It's just a lot easier to sit back and check your email while you're on a call. So that brings us to our second discussion point, overcoming remote worker isolation. Now, Mark, do you have any thoughts about how your firm handles this, or your clients? What ways can we help reduce isolation of remote workers?
I think sort of making remote workers feel involved. We, throughout the past few years, have had sort of remote events. So where there might have been company meetups, particularly during the pandemic, where they weren't possible, we still tried to continue those and engage everybody to work from home. Microsoft Teams has some great sort of collaborative platforms where large amounts of groups of people can meet and you can engage. So I think sort of trying to make sure everybody still feels a real part of the team is really important, regardless of whether they're at home or in the office. As I mentioned earlier, sort of embracing the video, making sure that people have their videos turned on, making sure that people have the right equipment when they're at home so they feel comfortable, so they have a good IT setup, I think is really important as well. Because from a productivity aspect, I think dual screens, for example, was something that many, many years ago, a lot of companies didn't want to put the capital into. And I think now if you go into an office and people don't have two screens, just sort of like, oh, how can I work properly on one screen? So making sure that if people are working in a sort of more permanent hybrid solution, that they have really good technology at home as well as in the office. I think that's sort of two sort of important points really. And just making sure that people set boundaries as well. I think it's very difficult. I certainly, when I'm working from home, I don't see the clock strike 5:30 and think, okay, I'm just going to go now. You sort of seem to think that, 5:30 you can become 6:30, you can become 7:30. So I think having those boundaries for people when they're not in the office and making sure that people don't feel that sense of, because I'm not commuting to the office and because I'm maybe saving an hour either side, that I need to spend that working to show to, the bosses that I am sort of putting the real effort in. I think sort of making sure that those boundaries are set both in the office and outside.
That's interesting. I know folks that are hybrid workers or remote workers. They actually work more than they would if they were working in office situation. Raphael, you're working remotely right now. You're squeezing us in between your flights and so forth. Is worker isolation really a problem? Do we actually have more productivity from remote workers than perhaps we would expect?
I think it's a very good point. It depends on each professional. I will say that there's not one recipe that fulfills everyone into the same kind of answer. However, for me, what I need is my computer. My kind of a kit for attending meetings, and off you go. And I travel quite a lot. And for me, having my remote office, wherever I go, is fundamental. By the way, I don't know if you realize, but multiple gyms today in UK also are setting office space, so you can go to do your exercise and then perhaps using the facility at the same time. So combine a little bit of a flexible inequality life. I think we need to be exposed to that, and I totally agree in terms of giving the flexibility back to the employees. And for sure, there are people that are going to be working more than the others. In the flexibility that allows people maybe to go to the gym in different times and working during different times also is the same flexibility that everyone is looking for, a little bit of a quality of life, a part of your work and your duties that you have to do.
Eamon, what are your thoughts on this? To me, if I'm a C-suite leader, I'm thinking, look, I don't have to maintain as much office space and infrastructure as I did before. I have remote workers that are perhaps or hybrid workers that are perhaps more happy to be working in a more flexible environment. They're probably more productive as a result. They may indeed be working more than they would be in the office. So to me, it's sort of a no-brainer. But am I missing something? Why the push to bring and force people back to the office?
Yeah, I think the challenge here, and Raphael, said it really isn't a one fits all. Whether that's about the human element, us and how we work, because we all work very differently, or whether it's a business difference, because each company has got different ways of working and different needs. And I think that we obviously were all forced to work from home, so we went very much one way. Then, as you mentioned, there was lots of expensive real estate, and it was at low occupancy. I
Sitting
read
empty,
lots of
much of it.
studies. Sorry, Kevin, did you lose me for a moment?
Yeah, well, that expensive real estate in many cases is sitting empty. Here in Portland, Oregon, it's a big thing, with the downtown being, about a quarter of what it used to be in terms of its office occupancy. So indeed, many of these buildings are sitting vacant now.
Yeah, and I think that's where the drive comes from, to get people back into the office. And I don't think that's always the right reason, but it's an understandable one. And I think that the real key here, if hybrid working is going to work, and real estate aside, that's I think that's a different challenge for each company, and how they work, and if they can work in the new world, because things have changed and they will continue to evolve. But I think the most important thing here is really making sure that your company values extend beyond the HQ. And if you're worried about productivity, then maybe your values aren't extending throughout your workforce, right? Because we should all feel the same kind of values and inclusion that Mark mentioned, that there's multiple ways to get, there's limitless ways we can get human interaction and connections within business now. There's so many great technologies that can help, but something that doesn't always resonate across them is culture. And I think that's the most important thing. And I think that internal communication is now more important than ever. If we are going to make this work, then internal communication it's got to be consistent, and it's got to reach all, and it's got to reach the hybrid worker as well as it does the person that's based in the office 5 days a week. So they're I think the real key points. And there's one last point, and you kind of touched on it, and it's the difference between the choosers and the users here. You mentioned some statistics about 80% saying that there's a bit of a challenge, and 60% here. And I look at lots of different studies that say lots of different things. But what is very clear is that the choosers believe they have a hybrid strategy, and the users don't always agree. So I think that disconnect is something for us to really look at across all companies.
What about diversity and equity, and indeed the resources now that can be available to my organization? I'll put it out to the group. How does hybrid work help with diversity and equity among the employees that I have on board? Anyone?
Well, I can start. I think it helps me a lot, because the talents that also we need might be in different geographics due to the shortage of candidates that we have on IT and cyber. However, this also opened another door, which is our spread in terms of a time zone working hours is more than 8 hours. So you see, being flexible also and having diversification on your pool of talents is so important. How? Because I think instead of me working 8 hours flat, we actually, if we cross different geographics, we might be working 12 or even 15 or 18 hours a day, depending on the geography that we are working. So in terms of having different teams and multiple teams in different geographics, if you have the right combination, you're going to extract more value in a good way, using all the components that we've been suggesting here, with flexible, with a quality of life, and including actually great results for the company.
Very good. We are here today with Raphael Narezi, Chief Technology Officer at CF Partners, also Eamon Odoati, Portfolio Director at Logitech, and Mark Chalice, IT Operations and Security Manager at EIP. We're talking about making hybrid work work. What are the issues to consider and strategies to design to make it work best for the organization and our workforce? If you have a question for our guests or a comment, please feel free to enter that into the chat feature, or we'll try to get some of them into the flow of the show, and we'll have a few moments here near the end of the program for your questions as well. All right, gentlemen, I'd like to move us along to our third discussion point, and it really is talking about making sustainable tech choices, avoiding e-waste and excessive energy use. So my question to the group is, what are the impacts of hybrid work in terms of these measurements, in terms of energy and environmental impacts? Eamon, what are your thoughts on that? Are these measurable impacts that should be included in my balance sheet?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there isn't a company now that can't have a strategy on sustainability. I think carbon's very much the new calorie, and I think it's something that needs to be considered in all of our choices, because I think it actually has an impact on the first two questions that we've discussed here as well. And I think whilst I hear lots about sustainability and strategy, what I really want to see is something as simple as, should I eat this? No, because it's red on fat. So something that for Logitech are looking to do is we're really looking to make that super transparent. So we've committed to putting our carbon details on or within the labels of all packaging across the entire portfolio. And I think that's really important to be super transparent about that. And then we can try to quantify what that sustainability actually means. If I give you some percentages of how much recycled plastic we use in our product, I think what's important to you is that good? Is that bad? Where are you as Logitech going to go with this? But ultimately, I think every business needs to kind of take a look at themselves and their sustainability, and we've done this as a company. And for a manufacturer, we could very quickly and easy work out that 65% of our carbon footprint comes from the sourcing and the manufacturing of our product. So that was the area to buy energy into first. So we're very committed into changing, and we're very committed to actually I believe, if I'm right, by 2030, we're committed as an organization to remove more carbon than we create as an organization. So I think the sustainability story is only going to become one that's more important to all businesses. And like I say, I do think there is a link to the previous questions as well around our hybrid workers and also our strategy and visions of business.
Mark, I've seen some concern online that hybrid work, remote work actually increases carbon footprint. What is your take on that?
I think if hybrid work is here to stay, that companies, real estate will eventually move down when leases start to end and there's less spare desks, and good technology can facilitate hot desking, and suddenly you've gone from heating an office with 5 floors to suddenly having 2. So I think that reduces those sort of emissions quite well. In terms of IT equipment, sort of users taking webcams home with them from their desk to their home office and headsets and so forth reduces the capital cost for peripherals, but also means that people don't have to have 2 lots of everything. So I think that's quite a nice way of looking at things. And as Eamon mentioned, EIP sustainability is a really important point, and we're a very technology-driven law firm, and having great tech now also needs to meet the environmental specifications. So when we're looking for IT hardware and so forth, is looking at what is that company's environmental pledges and what is their carbon footprint. Maybe looking to extend warranties on existing equipment. So rather than 3 or 4 years down the line saying, okay, we need to go and replace that unit, maybe we could get an extra year or 2 warranty. So that's going to give that particular product extra lifespan, which is going to reduce the sort of the carbon footprint as well. So I think there's so many different areas that companies can go. With both my operational and security hats on, looking at ISO standards for security of 27001 is really important information security standard, and ISO 14001, which is the environmental. side is becoming more and more popular now. So I think companies, when people are going to look to procure IT hardware, they're going to be looking to see what that company is actually doing to benefit them in terms of the technical aspect, but also what are they doing from an environmental part. And yeah, I think that's a really important point.
Rafael, let's talk about the operational and the budgetary considerations. Is it better for my organization to invest in remote and hybrid work versus investing in the office?
I think it's going back to the kind of a sustainability point. I think it's a little bit of both. On our office, we are a company on the energy market, but we are kind of a traders on carbon market, which is for us, we are sustainability company for sure. I think what we need to think about, for example, our office, everything that we pick from the new office, everything is sustainable because we want to provide that. And I think the new key for tech today is sustainability. Never been the case, but if you walk, I think probably I don't know 10 years in the city area here in London, every single screen, everything is on, right? Do we need to be on those computers on the office, lights, everything? And I think we need to reduce our carbon emission. And I think remote working is one way. So today we have this conference in different locations, and we are actually connected by one single internet pipe, which is also connects everyone together. As I said, I think is help us to reduce the carbon emission. Imagine if we have to go under the new traditional way. Everyone has to travel. There's going to be a lot of logistics in place, also expenses to be taking place with travels, hotels, even maybe airplane ticket, which one what is the most of a CO2 consumption. So I think, yes, I think flexibility and also spreading talents is very effective for us to kind of accomplish the goal.
All right, folks, we are getting some comments and questions from our audience, and I'd like to bring some of them into our discussion in the time that we have remaining. This one from Esme. Esme asks, what are some practical steps that tech companies can take to design products with longevity in mind and reduce electronic waste during the manufacturing process? That's a good point. And Eamon, I'll point to you. What is Logitech doing on this front?
Yeah, lots is the quick answer. Lots, because I think it's only going to become more important to our customers and to our partners and to our end users of our product. So, lots of small changes can add up to pretty big results here. And we are very, as I said, committed to those changes. I gave you a couple of statistics on where we're going, but we're looking at everything. We're looking at how we source our power for our offices. We're looking at how much of our plastics are recycled. We're looking at second life of our products, and we have a lot of initiatives there. We're looking at trade-in schemes. We're looking at PVC free in our cables, optimized printed circuit boards, smart battery efficiency. So when I said lots, I wasn't being dismissive. It was really that I could talk for a very long time because I really believe as a company I think we're ahead of the game, and we're very, very committed to sustainability.
And Mark, Bill is commenting, in the end, technology, if used correctly, improves resource optimization and force multiplication. Mark, do you find that to be true at EIP?
Yeah, I think technology, being such a technology-driven law firm, I think it's probably fair to say that I've worked in the law sector for quite a few years now in the IT field, is that law firms weren't always renowned for having great technology. And, go into a lawyer's office and see lots and lots of paper around. That is changing, and more technical advancements, more and more greater software available, communication from anybody around the world can log into a case management system or a document management system and share that source of information. I think from a productivity and an optimization, technology is the biggest driver behind that. And I think to be a success now, you have to sort of get with the times and realize that tech is the way forward. And I think that if the sort of pandemic has any good things have come out of the pandemic, I think that advancement in technology over the past 3 or 4 years has been absolutely huge. And I think we've probably gained many, many years from people having to adapt a lot quicker than they would have had if it wasn't sort of forced upon us with regards to people having to work outside of the office.
And Raphael, you are responsible for delivering high value technology to renewable energy clients. Do those renewable energy clients, are they more are they ahead of the curve when it comes to hybrid work? And is that so because of the nature of their business itself?
I think they are. Everyone is. Like I think once it's been pointed, I think the COVID has helped us into this transition. However, has passed, and then eventually we come to the same kind of mindset to come back to the office, as we see some companies kind of enforcing, which I don't think so. It should be the case. However, I think in general, renewables are very kind of forward thinking in order to embrace the technology and also flexibility. I don't see otherwise. However, once again, there is no one recipe that fulfills every single company. Might be other companies that is not so susceptible for remote working, and I think this is something that is about the culture that you want to build across your company and your team.
All right, we are here today with Raphael Narezi from CF Partners, Eamon Odoti, Portfolio Director at Logitech, and Mark Chalice, IT Operations and Security Manager at EIP. Gentlemen, we have reached the action item round of the program today. I'm wondering if each of you could provide us with one quick action item that our viewers can use to take advantage of the ideas and advice today. Raphael, I'll start with you. Do you have an action item for us today?
I missed it didn't come the communication.
Raphael, do you have an action item for our listeners today?
Oh yes, so for sure, I think is try to actually act on the remote working for them to maybe experience more flexible working using different facilities, like hobby hotels as I'm using, or even gyms facility, which they can kind of explore a quality life, a balance of life, and sometimes even a teamwork. What we try to do is combining people into the office in order to kind of agree a certain day, which we go or into our office or into a restaurant or into a hotel, just to be together and having a different time rather than just being in the office. I think it's a combination of multiple factors that people can pick and be more creative about it once that everyone can work remotely today.
Very good. Thank you, Raphael. That is Raphael Narezi. You can find him and find out more at cf-labs.com. Next, Mark Chalice. Mark, do you have an action item for our viewers today?
Yeah, so Kevin, I think one of the biggest improvements that we've seen is with this one unified communication plan throughout the firm, and making sure that everybody knows what the best way is to communicate to one another and across the firm in terms of what systems should be used in particular situations. Should we be emailing these documents? Should we be sharing them via OneDrive? Should we be having video calls with video, without video? I think once you have everybody sort of singing from the hymn sheet, if you will, then it really enables and allows those people who are working outside of the office, maybe in a different country, on a different sort of time zone, to be able to go in. Teams, for example, has a great feature where you can send a message and delay it being sent. So you might want to do that when you don't want to wake someone who's in the US when I start working in the morning and they're getting messages ping on their phone. So I think just good technology, good communication guides, and making sure that everybody knows what systems they have available to them. And with that, making sure that everybody receives the relevant training to utilize the systems. I think training is a real big point source. Two sections there, but making sure that people have adequate training, making sure that they really get training in being able to optimize the most out of systems. I think we have so much resource at our fingertips, but often people haven't been shown exactly what features that they can use. So I think the training side of it is really important too.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mark. That's Mark Chalice. You can find him and find out more at eip.com. And finally, Eamon Odoti, please, Eamon, do you have an action item for us today?
Yeah, I agree with everything from Raphael and Mark there, actually. So I will take a slightly different angle and come back to really what we're discussing with hybrid here and say that there really is a new logic of work at play. And I think it's important that every company really now looks at how they can enhance the experiences of their people wherever they want to work, whatever their scenario. And by that, it's some of the things that Mark picked up on about consistent delivery of hardware, software, but being used in a consistent manner. As I mentioned earlier, communication is key. So I really think it comes down to embracing that new logic of work, but really thinking people first, thinking about inclusivity, and that everyone working everywhere will give you the agility and the healthy, happy people that ultimately businesses want. So, yeah, I would say that work through those steps would be the my take. And as I say, some of it captured by Mark and Raphael. And
Nice.
Logitech really are front and center in all things collaboration, and very happy and willing to talk to anyone about how we can do that for them, enhance experiences and share our knowledge of working globally on collaboration for 50 years very soon.
Very good. That is Eamon Odoti. Eamon, thank you so much. You can find Eamon and find out more at logitech.com. Gentlemen, it's been great speaking with you today. Thank you. What a great panel. Your perspectives and advice were spot on. So thank you so much. I hope that we get a chance to talk again soon. And to everyone joining us today, thank you too. Join us again next week when we have another great discussion with a great panel of guests. And if you'd like to find me, you can do so on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect there. Just check me out. I'm Kevin Crane. And you can check out my weekly audio podcast, the Digital Transformation Podcast. But for now, that'll do it for this episode of Digital Transformation Talk. Until next time, I'm Kevin Crane. Thanks for watching.